Welcome to Dan and Sarah Makers. Today is another gluten-free technical challenge, and Penny is super excited, probably because I'm talking about food. So we are going to be doing a poached pear, and it kind of looks like a mummy pear, but it is a poached pear wrapped in rough puff pastry. There we go. I've never poached a pear before, and I've never made rough puff pastry before, so this will be an interesting experience. As some of you may already know, I am working my way through the seasons of Britain's Best Baker and attempting to do all the technical bakes using gluten-free ingredients. So today I'm going to start with the poaching syrup, and then from there I'm going to alternate back and forth. I have a rough puff pastry that has to be wrapped around a cooled poached pear, and it's supposed to look kind of like a mummified poached pear. So let's get started. I have a Chardonnay here, vintage 2018. Supposedly it has melon notes in it, and that's supposed to be nice with the flavoring that I am adding to the pears. So let's start by putting 400 milliliters of water into a poaching pan. So the next thing that goes in there are 2 cinnamon sticks. I'm also going to peel this orange. Full disclosure, the recipe does not call for this, but because I do not want my pears to oxidize, I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of the orange juice in there so that there's less oxidation. So that was 400 milliliters. And that makes 5. All right, I'm just gonna set this aside because I need to work on my rough puff pastry before I mess with the pears anymore. So today I'm going to use a new flour. If any of you watch America's Test Kitchen, the King Arthur gluten-free blend is one that they highly recommend, and while I haven't used it that much, I did like that their reviews had a lot of positive things to say about how the flavor is. I'm gonna give this a try today and see how it turns out. The most common ingredient here is rice flour, and it does have xanthan gum, so I'm not going to add any xanthan gum to my recipe today because I don't want it to be weird. It could get very gooey and kind of a gluey texture if I wasn't careful about the xanthan gum. Since that's a clumping agent, I'm just gonna go with the cup for cup, straight across the board recipe here and see what happens. One trick about making any sort of pastry is rolling it on cling wrap or plastic wrap, because a gluten-free flour does have a tendency to break apart. This is something I don't buy every day. Lard. I have never, ever purchased lard before. So apparently British lard is better than, or American lard, because the paper is all mixed in with the lard here. So how in the world are you supposed to, like, I don't even think you can see this. The paper is like dug way in here. It's like part of the lard. There we go, finally got it out. The last thing I need is a whole bunch of paper mixed in with the pie crust. Next, I need to add 200 grams of King Arthur's Measure for Measure. Okay, so the lard has been freezing to hold its consistency, and that's one of the reasons why it's so hard to get the wrapper off. So this butter is also frozen, and I'm grating it. All right, so now I have to somehow carefully mix this with the flour so that it doesn't lose its fluffy shape. The next step is to add between 120 and 150 milliliters of water, which is roughly just over a half cup. And I stuck this in the fridge for a really short time while I was prepping my surface. You can see I did not flour this because with gluten-free stuff, my experience is putting down plastic wrap is better. So I'm going to slowly incorporate the water in here. The water has been in the fridge as well to stay cold. And I even put my knives in the freezer so that everything kind of stays cold. The goal here is to keep the butter from melting because you want it to be flaky by not just turning into grease. Now, if this was regular gluten dough, this would probably be all coming together into a ball. But it is not gluten dough, and because of that, you have to treat it a little bit different. Because I have made pie crust before, just not quite exactly like this. Similar. So I'm going to bring this all together into a rectangle. And remember, we're going to be rolling and folding this, rolling and folding it, so I'm not too worried if it's not perfect the first time. So the top third goes down, and then the bottom third comes up. This is why you have to use the plastic wrap, or this would not even remotely happen. And then it's says go 90 degrees, but I'm not gonna move this around. Fold this one over, 1/3 over, and then fold the other 1/3 over, and then put it in the fridge. So some of the things that you don't realize when you're watching the show on PBS is that during the technical challenges, the contestants get all these things laid out for them. They don't have to go find all the ingredients and all the correct size pans and all the correct size blah blah blah. So what I'm thinking is that this pan is probably too shallow for poaching, but I don't want to waste the syrup, so I bought 8 pears instead of 6, just in case. And we'll see how this comes out. I might not be able to mummify all my pears, but I'm going to see how that goes. So the one thing I haven't put in my syrup yet is the castor sugar. It takes 300 grams of castor sugar, so that's my next thing I need to measure in. Now that I have this all mixed together and it's been sitting here for a little while, I'm going to start adding the poached pears to this. Well, they're not poached yet, but they will be shortly. So I'm trying to get the seeds out of it. So it takes a few scoops to do that. But now they're all out. And you can kind of see how it just popped the seed casing out in one scoop once I finally got to it. So now we just have to do that a whole bunch more times. So this is my second rollout, and the dough is quite soft. I'm going to do the thirds again. There's 1/3. There's the other third. best as I can. And then fold this in a third, and then fold this in a third. And then we wrap it all up again. And let it sit for another 20 minutes. Final rollout. I've never been able to pick one up and move it. Last one. Okay. That is pretty cool. Cinnamon on fresh bread with brown sugar and orange slices. I don't know how else to describe it. It smells amazing. So we're going to let these boil for a little while. We're going to let them simmer. I have to be very, very mindful of them. And when they start simmering again, we have to count 15 minutes. And then it will be done. We'll have to check them. So I'll have to keep a very close eye on these. And I assume that every variety of pear is going to be just a little bit different. So you just have to keep an eye on them. We're gonna give this a try. See if they're ready. Oh yeah. So these are Bartlett pears and they appear to be very much done. I'm glad I checked them. There's still 2 minutes on the clock, so it's a good thing I checked them before the time was up. I now have to bring this back to a boil and boil it down to half so it's very thick syrup. So I have all my ingredients prepped now. I have the pears, which have cooled, the syrup, which has cooled, the pie crust, which is in the fridge. And my next step is to prep how to mummify the poached pears. So the first thing I did is I beat up an egg. That'll be the egg wash. I have some granulated sugar here to sprinkle over the top right before it goes in the oven. And my next step is to roll out the pie crust and cut it into little strips and then wrap each one of the pears. So I'm just going to record that process, and then we're going to put them in the oven at 400 degrees and bake them until they're golden brown. Okay, I have selected my pears of choice. Now I'm going to coat them in syrup. So this is where you have to treat pie crust dough that's gluten-free a little different than pie crust dough that is not. We're gonna roll this a little bit more, just so that it adheres a little bit. So if we were flipping it onto a pie, it would be easier with 2 layers of the plastic wrap. I have to double check how wide these are supposed to be. About 1/3 of an inch. So I'm going to leave that because I don't know how much this is going to do. This does not look promising. I don't know why I'm shaking. I'm not even in a competition. Killing me. Oh boy. Alright, that was the first one. Now I just have 5 more to go. A little tinier one, so I don't want to drench it completely. Okay. I have to egg wash them. I forgot. You don't get any penny. Stick it here. There you go. Alright, now I'll put them in the oven. They, I think, are ready to take out of the oven, and they have not fallen apart. There's a lot of butter in the bottom. Ooh, they're hot. Well, thank you for joining me today on this episode of the Gluten Free Technical Challenge, where I mummified poached pears. This is way better than I expected. I don't even care what they taste like at this point. They didn't fall apart, and they're made out of gluten-free pie crust, which is one of the things that I have had a lot of disasters with over the years. So, we'll eat them once they cool off, but for now, thank you for watching Dan and Sarah Makers, and I hope these videos inspire you to get out there and do something. I'll see you on the next technical challenge. Bye!
So I believe this is week 4 of the challenge. And
5.
4 or 5? Okay. I have the dubious honor of taste testing this. So this is the poached pear.
Yeah.
That's been mummified. So does this have seeds in it and all that?
No.
No? All right. I don't know how to do this. This is new. I'm gonna go in between.
Oh, that sounds really good.
Ah, I see it's been emptied out. Lay this down. Ah. Making a mess of it. All right. Here we go. It's really good. It's kind of a it's reminiscent of apple pie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't tried it yet, so can I try some?
Yeah.
Okay. How's the pie crust?
Very good.
Really?
It tastes like pie crust. And not being gluten free, I know what a normal pie crust tastes like. So I guess I'm comparing the gluten free crust to a regular crust. And they're very similar. Yay!
Oh my goodness, that tastes amazing!
Yeah, it's good. The syrup's a little bit thinner than what I would consider like a normal apple pie filling. Yeah. But yeah, all in all, it's really good.
Yay!
It's like a personal pear pie, apple pie thing.
They call it a mini pear pie is what it's called, not a mummified pear.
Oh, mini pear pie. So
I think that might be the most successful one so far.